The human ship Odyssey drifted through the endless black of space, its hull catching faint glimmers of distant stars. Inside, Captain Maris leaned back in her chair, spinning slowly, her eyes scanning the navigation display. She was always a calm presence even when things went wrong. Today, things were about to go very wrong. "Lyle, how's our course?" she asked, voice light and teasing. Engineer Lyle, hunched over a panel covered in blinking lights, frowned. Technically fine, Captain, but it seems we're off by a few million kilometers." "Million?" Maris raised an eyebrow. "How do you misplace a few million kilometers?" Lyle shrugged, rubbing the back of his neck. "Navigation systems were acting up and, well, I may have misread the calibration." Science Officer Amara, standing nearby with her tablet, shook her head but smiled. "So, technically, we're not lost. We're exploring." "Exploring is what I call it," Maris said. "Getting lost is what our insurance company will call it." The crew laughed. Humor was always their way to deal with danger, and space was full of dangers, but they were about to stumble into one they could never have imagined. On the view screen, a cluster of massive, sleek ships appeared. They were unlike anything humans had ever seen. Towering, metallic, and angular, they glinted with energy shields and pulsed with strange blue lights. The display read, "Ziran Dominion patrol ships. Unauthorized entry detected." Maris tilted her head. Lyle?" Lyle swallowed. That's a lot of ships." "Hi." Maris waved casually at the screen as if they were old. "Friends, sorry we're here, wrong turn at Alpha Centauri." Amara blinked. "Captain, I don't think they get our humor." The Ziran ships didn't answer. Instead, they shifted formation and moved closer, surrounding the Odyssey. The human crew felt a sudden tension in the air. The Zirans were legendary across the galaxy. Stories of their power were told in hushed tones in human spaceports. Trespassers were rarely seen again. But humans. Well, humans were not known for being easily intimidated. Maris leaned forward, resting her chin on her hands. "Okay, team. Let's do what we do best. Smile, joke, and act completely normal." Lyle gave a nervous laugh. "Normal in this case is, well, anything but panic?" "Exactly," Maris said. "Now go say hello." Lyle tapped a few keys and sent a standard communication signal. "Greetings, mighty Zirans. We are humans. Friendly. Slightly lost. Hope you don't mind us dropping by." There was a long silence. The Zirans were puzzled. Their sensors reported humans behaving in ways they could not predict. Laughter, casual movements, no signs of fear. One Ziran commander, a tall, angular figure named Vorin, leaned over the control console. His voice, deep and mechanical, filled the bridge. "They are not afraid," another officer hissed. "They are laughing at us?" "Yes," Vorin replied. "At our formations, at our patrols, how is this possible?" Back on the Odyssey, Maris clapped her hands. "See? It's working. Confusion is half the battle." Amara frowned. "Or it's a prelude to disaster." Details, Maris waved off. "We'll charm them. That's what humans do. Best." The Odyssey's systems emitted a soft hum as the ship was gently pulled into the Ziran formation. The humans remained relaxed, joking about how they hoped the Empire had good coffee. At the Ziran command station, human behavior was analyzed in real time. Every gesture, every laugh, every casual remark was logged. The officers struggled to categorize it. Ziran logic was rigid, humans were chaotic. Their humor, optimism, and unpredictability made no sense. Vorin's eyes narrowed. We expected fear, submission, or negotiation, not this. On board the Odyssey, Lyle adjusted the engines nervously. "So, we're being escorted? Are we in trouble?" Maris grinned. "Technically, yes. Practically, not yet. Remember, humans are good at making bad situations look like fun adventures." As the ship moved closer to the Ziran station, the crew prepared for their first real encounter. The docking bay was enormous, far larger than any human facility. Energy barriers shimmered and mechanical arms hovered, ready to scan. Humans had never seen anything like it. Wow, Amara whispered. This is impressive. Maris chuckled. Impressive, yes, but we're humans. We're good at turning impressive into amusing. The docking procedure was smooth. As the Odyssey aligned with the bay, humans waved and called out jokes. Mind if we park here for a coffee? The Xerans were silent. They didn't understand humor, but they understood compliance. The humans were still under control, but the laughter, the relaxed attitude, and the bold jokes made them uneasy. Inside the docking bay, the human crew stepped out, hands raised in peace. Xeran officers approached cautiously, scanning every movement. Maris took the lead. Greetings, we are humans. Friendly, slightly clumsy, and very happy to meet you. I hope we're not interrupting your galactic domination. The Xeran officers paused. They had expected submission, or at least fear, not audacious humor. One of them, a tall figure with glowing eyes named Raxil, tilted his head. They joke, and they are smiling. Why? Amara, ever analytical, whispered. Because humans find humor even in danger. It's how they survive. Lyle muttered under his breath. I'd survive better if they didn't have glowing eyes. Maris ignored him. We come in peace, and if we break any rule, well, we promise it was accidental. She winked at the Xerans. We're really good at accidents, especially funny ones. Vorin exchanged a glance with Raxil. This is illogical. They should be terrified. Yet, they are calm and amusing. The Xerans, unaccustomed to anything but obedience, struggled to respond. They guided the humans to a briefing chamber, a massive room filled with holographic maps and strange alien symbols. Humans stared in awe, then began to joke quietly among themselves about the weird space art. Maris turned to the Xeran officers. So, what happens now? Do we get a tour? Tea? Galactic citizenship forms? The Xerans paused. You will be observed and tested. Tested? Maris laughed. I hope it's a fun test, or at least one with prizes. The crew chuckled. They were not afraid. Humans, in general, had a strange talent. They remained cheerful in the face of danger even when surrounded by a far superior power. And it unnerved their observers. As the day passed, humans wandered the station, asking curious questions, laughing at misunderstandings, and offering friendly jokes. Each small interaction was a puzzle to the Xerans. Amara watched a Xeran officer try to explain a protocol. The humans misheard, then improvised a solution. The officer blinked. They misunderstood. And it worked? Maris leaned against a console. Sometimes the wrong answer is the best one. By evening, humans were escorted to quarters that were far larger and more luxurious than any human quarters should be. The crew unpacked casually, still joking about their grand, accidental adventure. Lyle looked out the window at the massive station. You know, we really shouldn't be here. This is enemy territory. Maris smiled. Exactly. And that's what makes it fun. Humans are the best at turning danger into, well, comedy. Amara laughed softly. Comedy and survival. The humans sat down to eat, joking about Xeran cuisine which none of them could identify or pronounce. They were tired, but not worried. In their laughter, in their calm, and in their curiosity, they had already begun to sow the seeds of confusion and perhaps eventual victory. Outside, the Xeran officers continued to watch. They could not understand it. The humans were supposed to be intimidated, subdued, even broken. Instead, they were smiling, laughing, and moving with confidence. Vorin muttered, almost to himself, perhaps they are stronger than we anticipated. But how? The answer was simple, though the Xerans could not see it yet. Humans had a power beyond weapons, beyond strategy, a power of creativity, adaptability, and spirit. The morning on the Zirin command station began with a hum of energy and the faint glow of alien lights. Outside the massive observation windows, the human ship Odyssey floated like a small pebble in a giant river of metal and light. Inside, humans were moving with the same cheerful confidence they had shown since arriving. Captain Maris stretched and looked around at her crew. "Good morning, team. Hope everyone slept well. Zirin beds are surprisingly comfortable. Or maybe we're just humans, adaptable, remember?" Lyle rubbed his eyes, glancing at the strange alien ceiling. "I slept, mostly, but the lighting is weirdly bright, and the walls make soft humming sounds." Amara, ever observant, had already scanned the room's energy signals. "It's a kind of ambient resonance. I don't think it's dangerous. Just unusual. Humans adapt, that's true. But so far our adaptation is mostly survival through humor." Maris grinned. "Exactly. Humor is like a shield for humans, and lucky for us, it's working." Their first day outside the quarters was a careful exploration under Zirin supervision. Zirin officers guided them through corridors of shimmering metal, past enormous energy, conduits and control rooms filled with displays of alien data. Humans looked around in awe, constantly commenting with playful curiosity. "Look at that," Lyle exclaimed, pointing at a row of floating consoles. "Do they float? Or is that a trick of light?" Amara smiled. "Definitely floating. Anti-gravity tech, I'd guess. Useful, but not as flexible as human improvisation." Maris stepped lightly, observing the Zirin officers' reactions. "Notice how they tense up when we touch things? It's like they think we'll break their empire by accident." Indeed, the Zirins were increasingly uneasy. Every time a human laughed at a confusing control panel or mispronounced a command, it seemed to defy Zirin logic. Vorin and Raxil watched from the control tower as humans navigated the station with ease and cheer, despite lacking any understanding of Zirin protocols. "They are unpredictable," Vorin muttered, "and yet they succeed in tasks we assigned. How is this possible?" Raxil, his glowing eyes narrowing, added, "Their behavior is disturbing. We cannot calculate their next move. They should fail. Yet, they do not." Meanwhile, humans had begun their informal exploration. They wandered into an engineering bay where massive machines hummed and whirred. Lyle's eyes lit up. "Look at all this. So many buttons, so many wires. I can fix anything. Here, or at least make it do something new." Amara studied the machinery carefully. "It's complex, yes, but predictable in principle. Humans, however, seem chaotic, and chaos, oddly, produces results." The humans accidentally pressed a sequence of controls in the wrong order. Alarms flashed, lights flickered, and mechanical arms began moving unexpectedly. Zirin engineers rushed in, prepared for disaster. Instead, the human improvisation caused the machine to complete a maintenance cycle faster than normal. Lyle scratched his head. "Well, that was supposed to be a mistake, but hey, it works." Maris laughed. "Humans have a knack for turning mistakes into success. It confuses everyone else, especially aliens with rigid rules. The Zirins could not comprehend it. How can they fail and succeed at the same time?" Raxil whispered. As the day continued, humans were introduced to more Zirin systems: communication hubs, defensive arrays, and energy storage networks. At every step, humans approached tasks differently than the Zirins expected. A simple observation would be made, a joke cracked, and then a casual improvisation would lead to unintended but effective results. Amara commented, "It's as if they are guided not by fear, not by strategy, but by curiosity and instinct." Maris nodded. "Curiosity is powerful. Never underestimate it. Humans explore, ask questions, and adapt. And we do it with a smile, which is apparently confusing for the Zirins." Later, they were invited to a training exercise. Zirin officers intended it to be a small test of human adaptability. Humans were to navigate a maze filled with holographic obstacles while following strict protocols. "Okay, let's do this," Maris said, clapping her hands. "Remember, the key is Stay calm, stay cheerful, and look like we know what we're doing, even if we don't. The humans entered the maze. At first they tried following instructions, but soon, Lyle got distracted by an odd hologram and decided to improve it. He tapped a few controls, accidentally creating a shortcut through the maze. Amara followed, curious about the new path, and Maris laughed. Shortcut or disaster? Who cares? Adventure is adventure. By the time they reached the exit, the humans had completed the maze faster than the Xerans expected. The officers looked stunned. They had planned obstacles, traps, and challenges, yet humans had bypassed them through a combination of curiosity, improvisation, and a strange sense of fun. Voren clenched his claws in frustration. They succeed without following rule, without discipline, without logic, Raxil growled, and they are laughing while doing it. Laughing? How is this possible? That evening, humans gathered in their quarters. They were exhausted, yet cheerful. This was fun, Lyle exclaimed. I accidentally solved their puzzle in half the time. Who knew being wrong could be right? Amara nodded, smiling. Humans have a way of making mistakes into advantages. Xerans cannot understand it, but it works. Maris raised her mug of synthetic coffee. Here's the thing. Humans survive. In chaos, we adapt, we improvise, and we laugh along the way. That's why we're humans, and that's why we'll always find a way, even in an empire's territory. The next morning, humans were called to a Xeran briefing room. Maps of the galaxy, holograms of star systems, and status reports of Xeran fleets covered the walls. Humans were expected to sit quietly and learn, or so the officers thought. Instead, they asked questions. Lots of questions. Do you patrol all these systems? Amara asked. That must take forever. How do you keep track? Yes, Voren replied stiffly. We monitor everything. It is efficient. It is logical. It is necessary. Lyle leaned forward. Ever thought of shortcuts? Or maybe teaching smaller units to handle some tasks? You might free up resources. The Xerans blinked. Suggestions from humans, and not just any humans. They were smiling, curious, and seemingly innocent. Maris added, efficiency is great, but efficiency with flexibility is better. You might enjoy it. I mean, if you could laugh a little. Voren's jaw tightened. Laugh? Xerans did not laugh. Humor was illogical, and yet, the humans radiated confidence, curiosity, and charm. Their very presence was unsettling. Over the next few days, humans continued to navigate Xeran culture with their usual blend of humor and ingenuity. They touched strange control panels, asked awkward questions, and offered unconventional solutions to simple problems. Every time they failed or misunderstood, the result was often more effective than what the Xerans intended. Defense drills, strategic exercises, and even routine maintenance became unpredictable events. Amara observed quietly. It's as if they turn the Empire's rigid systems into puzzles, and then solve them by ignoring the rules. Lyle laughed. I call it human luck, or genius disguised as chaos. Maris smiled. Chaos works, curiosity works, laughter works. That's why humans survive, where many others would fail. And Xerans? They don't even know what hit them. By the end of the week, the Xeran officers were both impressed and unnerved. Humans had passed every small test, often by accident. They had touched, poked, and questioned everything, yet left no damage, only improvements, unintended but effective. Voren whispered to Raxil. They are stronger than expected, not in force, but in spirit. Raxil nodded slowly. And unpredictable. That may be the greatest threat of all. Back on the Odyssey, the crew sat around a table eating a meal of synthesized food. Lyle shook his head. I can't believe we just stumbled through all that, and they didn't even know what hit them. Maris raised her mug. Humans have a special talent. We survive through cleverness, adaptability, and laughter, and that's exactly what's keeping us alive in the middle of the galaxy's most rigid empire. Amara smiled. Not only alive, but already respected. They don't realize it yet, but they've already learned something from us, Lyle laughed. Well, if they ever figure out our methods, they'll probably still fail. We're humans. Messy, chaotic, brilliant humans. The Xerans continued to watch, trying to understand. Every gesture, every joke, every improvisation puzzled them more. They had expected fear, obedience, and failure. Instead, humans brought laughter, ingenuity, and an unusual calm that no weapon could measure. And somewhere deep in the Empire, Vorin realized that humans were more dangerous than any fleet or army, because their strength was invisible, and it worked in ways the Xerans could not predict. The humans, meanwhile, slept peacefully that night, dreaming of their next adventure. They were far from home, deep in enemy territory, yet confident. Humans had survived worse. And with their humor, cleverness, and adaptability, they would not just survive, they might just thrive. The galaxy had yet to see what humans could do when they were underestimated. The Odyssey glided silently through space, its engines humming a steady rhythm. Humans were used to being explorers, but this time, their exploration had brought them straight into the heart of Xeran territory. And now, the punishment mission that the Xerans had assigned them was about to become something entirely different. Captain Maris leaned back in her chair, spinning slowly. All right, team, new day, new adventure. Remember, this is supposed to be a punishment mission, but humans don't do punishment, they do fun. Lyle scratched his head. Fun? I thought it was danger, or maybe doom. Amara laughed. Fun can be dangerous too. But yes, humans have a strange talent for turning danger into fun and success. The mission was simple, at least by Xeran standards. Humans were to survey a small planet under Xeran control and report on any irregularities in its defenses. It was meant to be tedious, a reminder of their place. But humans, as always, had other ideas. Survey, Maris said, reading the instructions aloud. Basically, poke around, look at things, and don't get caught. Easy, Lyle groaned. Easy for humans, maybe, but Xeran patrols are everywhere. Exactly why it's fun, Maris replied. Unpredictable danger. Humans love that. As the Odyssey approached the planet, they were greeted by a sky of swirling orange clouds and jagged mountains. Xeran scanners reported no anomalies, but humans saw everything as a playground for curiosity. Look at that mountain, Lyle said, pointing to a cliff face. It's perfect for climbing, or maybe for improvising a shortcut through their sensors. Amara tapped her tablet. Sensors are spread across the planet. They are rigid, programmed to detect regular patterns. Humans excel at breaking patterns. Exactly, Maris said. Let's break some patterns. The humans landed on the planet with casual precision, joking as they descended. Xeran patrols were already nearby, expecting them to move carefully, follow rules, and show obedience. Instead, humans wandered freely, laughing at obstacles and asking curious questions. Excuse me? Lyle called to a patrol drone hovering above. Do you mind if we check that control tower? Looks interesting. The drone hovered uncertainly. Its sensors were designed to detect hostility, but humans were moving with calm confidence. No weapons drawn, no aggression shown. It could not categorize them. Inside the control tower, Maris tapped a few panels, joking about pressing the big red button, though no red button existed. Yet her improvisation caused an unexpected result. A security protocol that had been inactive for weeks suddenly recalibrated, disabling some nearby sensor arrays. Amara raised an eyebrow. That wasn't in the instructions, and yet it works. Lyle laughed. Humans do not follow instructions, humans follow curiosity. By the end of the first day, humans had explored most of the designated area. They had tripped alarms, misdirected patrols, and accidentally discovered hidden supply caches. Each mistake created an advantage. Xeran officers monitoring from orbit were growing frantic. Vorin paced the bridge. They should be stopped. Every move they make breaks our systems, and yet they continue unharmed, successful, smiling. Always smiling. Raxiel's glowing eyes narrowed. We cannot predict them. Their behavior is chaotic, and it produces results. It is disturbing. The humans, oblivious to the mounting Xiran concern, settled down for the night in a small valley. They roasted a meal over a portable energy stove, joking about how alien the planet smelled and how Xirans must not know how to cook. Maris leaned back. You know, the funny part is we're supposed to be in trouble, and yet we've already caused more confusion than a fleet of warships could. Amara smiled. Humans have a strange talent. They turn uncertainty into advantage, and they enjoy it. The next morning, the humans continued their mission. Lyle noticed a series of security towers along the cliffside. Sensors, patrols, very predictable. Let's see what happens if we climb instead of walking around. Maris nodded. Go for it. Humans are climbers by nature, and by climbing we also confuse their patrol drones. Advantage? Us. They scaled the cliffs carefully, laughing at the absurdity of it all. From above, they could see the entirety of the valley below. Patrols moved predictably, unaware of the humans' unconventional approach. Amara tapped her tablet. They rely on patterns. Humans do not create patterns. Therefore, humans are unpredictable. By midday, they had accidentally discovered a hidden communications hub. Lyle pressed a few keys, intending only to see what would happen. A message system opened up, giving them access to Xiran internal communications. They giggled at the strange, formal alien messages. This is like finding the secret menu at a restaurant, Lyle said. Maris laughed. Exactly. Except the menu controls a small part of an empire. No big deal. With the communications hub, they could redirect patrols, creating false alerts and emptying zones they needed to explore. Again, humans' unintentional ingenuity turned a simple survey into a small campaign of clever manipulation. By evening, the humans had mapped almost the entire region, uncovered secret supplies, and caused minor disruptions to Xiran operations, all without a single confrontation. They had, in effect, won a string of accidental victories. Back on the Xiran bridge, the officers were growing desperate. They are winning! By accident! Vorin shouted. Every failure they commit turns into our loss, Raxil growled. We cannot fight them the usual way. They do not fear us, they do not obey rules, and they enjoy it. Enjoy it. Meanwhile, the humans set up a small campsite on a cliff overlooking the valley. They watched as patrols moved below, entirely unaware of the human oversight. Maris chuckled. You know, we're supposed to be careful, but somehow our carelessness has become our strategy. Amara smiled. Humans are adaptable. They improvise, and they maintain morale. That combination, it's powerful. Lyle leaned back on a rock. And they think it's all a joke. They have no idea that we're making them look silly. As the sun set, the humans shared stories and laughed about their strange accidental successes. Their laughter carried across the valley, a sound that would have seemed insignificant to most, but not to the Xirans who were still observing. Why do they laugh? One officer asked, confused. They should be fearful. They should be cautious. And yet, laughter? Vorin's voice was low, almost reverent. It is strength, invisible strength. They are not strong because of weapons. They are strong because they refuse to fear. The next day, humans ventured deeper into the valley. They discovered an abandoned outpost and began exploring it for hidden supplies. Lyle poked at a dormant generator, accidentally activating a series of backup systems. Lights flickered, doors opened, and what had been sealed was now accessible. Maris laughed. Oops, we just turned an abandoned outpost into a hub of information. Amazing, Amara nodded. Humans do not plan. They improvise, yet their improvisation creates solutions that are effective. By the end of the mission, humans had done more than simply survey the planet. They had mapped it, uncovered hidden structures, disrupted patrols, and discovered secrets the Xirans had kept hidden for decades. And all the while they joked, laughed, and remained cheerful. Back aboard the Odyssey, as they prepared to leave the planet, Maris addressed the crew. Team, we were sent on a punishment mission. We were supposed to learn humility and obedience. Instead, she grinned. We've created chaos, uncovered secrets, and accidentally won a string of victories. Humans do not fail. Humans improvise. Lyle laughed. And laugh while doing it. Amara smiled. Exactly. Humans are unpredictable, adaptable, and cheerful. That is our true power. In orbit, Xiran officers could only watch. The humans had completed the mission in ways no one could have anticipated. They had not fought. They had not threatened. They had simply been humans, curious, inventive, and full of spirit. And that was enough to make them victorious. Vorin whispered to Raxil, his voice tinged with frustration and awe. They stumble, they joke, and yet, they win. How can this be? Raxil shook his head. It is not combat. It is human nature. And it is unstoppable. On the Odyssey, the crew celebrated with a modest meal, sharing laughter and stories of the day's accidental victories. Outside, the galaxy seemed vast and intimidating, but humans had already begun to prove that no empire could easily measure their strength. Maris looked out at the stars. We may be small, but humans have a way of turning the impossible into the possible. And sometimes the impossible is just fun in disguise. Lyle raised his mug. To fun, chaos, and accidental victories, Amara laughed. And to humans, the universe's most unpredictable species. As the stars stretched endlessly before them, humans knew one thing. No matter how rigid, how powerful, or how terrifying the empire seemed, humans would always find a way to laugh, improvise, and survive. And sometimes, laughing was enough to win. The Odyssey drifted through Xiran space, its hull gleaming under distant starlight. Captain Maris leaned in her chair, sipping a cup of synthetic coffee. The crew around her were bustling with energy, already planning the next stage of their unintended campaign. We've done well so far, Maris said, smiling. Surveyed planets, caused minor chaos, discovered secrets, and all without firing a shot. Lyle grinned. I like our style, chaos, curiosity, and luck. A perfect human mix. Amara nodded. And it works. Xirans are still watching, still trying to predict us. And they cannot. The humans' success on the small planet had already begun to ripple through the Xiran-controlled systems. Colonists on other planets, oppressed under the Empire's rigid rule, had heard stories of strange, smiling intruders, humans who moved freely, laughed in the face of authority, and achieved what no one else could. Maris tapped the Ijao. Consul, we've become famous or infamous, depending on who you ask. Lyle snorted. Famous for accidents, infamous for being ridiculously lucky, love it. Amara studied the incoming messages. Some of the local populations are responding to us. They're curious. Some are even inspired. It seems humans. Laughing at authority is contagious, Maris chuckled. Inspiration, accidental, of course, that's humans for you. Wherever we go, chaos follows. And sometimes, inspiration too. Their next mission was more deliberate, or at least it was supposed to be. The Xirans had sent them to inspect a remote sector rumored to have rebel activity. The humans, of course, did not see it as a mission of enforcement. They saw it as adventure. Landing on the planet, they were greeted by rough terrain, jagged cliffs, and harsh winds. Xiran patrols were stationed everywhere, expecting humans to be careful, quiet, and respectful of their authority. Instead, the humans laughed as they tripped over rocks, slid down slopes, and climbed mountains that the Xirans considered impossible. Watch. Out for patrols, Amara said, checking her tablet. They move predictably, humans not so much. Maris grinned. Exactly, let's stay unpredictable, that's our best defense. They wandered through a canyon, joking about how it resembled a roller coaster ride. Lyle improvised a rope, swinged across a deep chasm, while Maris and Amara followed with calculated leaps. Patrols above scanned the area, confused by the humans' random, chaotic paths. They are defying our protocols, a Xiran officer whispered over comms. They should be caught by now. Yet they move freely, another replied. And they are laughing. As they explored, the humans discovered small settlements hidden among the cliffs. People had been living under strict Xiran control, afraid to act independently. When they saw the humans, unafraid, cheerful, and clever, they were struck by an unfamiliar emotion. Hope. Maris waved. Hello. Don't worry, we're humans. Friendly, a little clumsy, but mostly harmless. The locals blinked. They had never seen beings move and speak so freely. A few whispered among themselves. They are not afraid. Humans began to share simple tricks for daily tasks, how to fix machinery with scraps, how to move supplies without being detected, and even small jokes that lifted spirits. Laughter echoed through the hidden settlements, a sound so foreign it felt like magic. Amara observed quietly. Humans don't intend to lead, yet their presence inspires others. It's subtle, but powerful. Lyle laughed as he accidentally triggered a Xiran warning siren. Patrols rushed toward the sound, but the humans had already vanished behind a series of cliffs. From a high ledge, they watched as confusion spread among the patrols. Maris shook her head, laughing. And that, my friends, is how humans accidentally create victory. We make noise and it becomes opportunity. By nightfall, humans had mapped the settlements, noted patrol patterns, and even left small tools and devices that would help the locals maintain independence. All of this was done without aggression, without weapons, and with a sense of playful curiosity. Back on the Odyssey, the crew reviewed the day's events. Humans are turning the Empire upside down, Amara said. Not with force, but with ingenuity and morale. They don't understand that their rules don't apply to us. Maris smiled. Rules are flexible. Humans are flexible. And humans laugh at what they cannot control. That's our greatest power. The next morning, the humans were called to a Xiran council meeting. The officers hoped to assess the damage, understand how humans had moved so freely, and determine how to control them. Maris entered with her usual confidence. Lyle fidgeting, behind her and Amara following, tablet in hand. Greetings, Maris said brightly. We come bearing, well, mostly questions, and maybe a few suggestions. Totally harmless, of course. Voran's face was tight with frustration. Your actions are disruptive. You move freely in our territory, inspire colonists, and evade patrols. How? Maris shrugged innocently. We're humans. We explore, we laugh, and we improvise. Perhaps it seems strange to you, but it works for us. Raxiel's glowing eyes narrowed. It is more than strange. It is dangerous. Amara stepped forward, calmly presenting a holographic map of the region. Humans follow curiosity and adaptability. By moving unpredictably, they avoid standard security measures. Their optimism is contagious. Colonists respond to it. Systems that rely on fear and control fail when humans are involved. Voran slammed a claw on the table. This cannot continue. They are turning our empire upside down. Maris laughed softly. Well, it's certainly entertaining. And accidental. Victories are always the best kind. The Xirans had underestimated humans. They had expected fear, compliance, and simple obedience. Instead, humans were cheerful, creative, and adaptive. They could not be controlled, predicted, or intimidated. And unintentionally, they were inspiring rebellion, not through force, but through spirit. Humans returned to the planet's surface, exploring the settlements further. Lyle found a small workshop with abandoned tools and equipment. Perfect, he exclaimed. We can show the locals a few tricks, maybe rig a few devices to help them move supplies faster. Maris nodded. Do it, and remember, nothing dangerous. Just clever and fun. By the afternoon, humans had created a small network of helpful tools and signals that allowed the colonists to avoid patrols and move freely. They taught simple ways to repair equipment, build small shelters, and communicate secretly. Amara noted, every action is accidental strategy. Humans do not plan conquest or rebellion. They simply act with curiosity and goodwill. Yet the effect is profound. Even as Xiran patrols intensified, Humans' unpredictability allowed them to evade detection repeatedly. Every misstep, every joke, and every casual improvisation created advantages that the Xerans could not anticipate. Maris sat on a hill, watching the sunset over the jagged cliffs. Humans don't fight with weapons. We fight with spirit, adaptability, and humor. That's why no empire can truly control us. Lyle laughed. And it's fun. Who knew accidental victories could be this enjoyable? The colonists began to see humans as heroes, not because of strength, but because of character. They watched and learned, laughing quietly, and imagining a world where they too could act freely. That night, humans camped atop the cliffs, stars stretching endlessly above. They shared stories, laughed about the day's adventures, and plotted their next exploration. Not to conquer, not to fight, but simply to discover, help, and adapt. Amara looked around. Humans are remarkable. They don't need orders to succeed. They succeed by being themselves. Maris smiled. Exactly. Being human is enough, and sometimes, enough is more than anyone expects. In orbit, Xeran officers watched the planet below. Confusion and unease filled the command rooms. Humans had turned a simple observation mission into a campaign of influence and inspiration. They had not broken laws through violence. They had outsmarted the Empire with curiosity, laughter, and ingenuity. Bourne clenched his claws. We have underestimated them. Humans are not soldiers, not conquerors, but they change everything just by being themselves. Raxiel's eyes glowed brighter. And that is terrifying. On the Odyssey, the humans finished their meal, smiling and joking. Lyle raised a mug. To accidental victories and laughter. Maris nodded. To humans, always unpredictable, always resilient, always cheerful. As the stars shimmered in the distance, the humans prepared for their next adventure, unaware that they were slowly reshaping an empire, not with force, but with ingenuity, spirit, and laughter. The galaxy had begun to notice that humans, though small and seemingly ordinary, possessed a power no empire could fully control. The power of being unapologetically themselves. The Odyssey floated silently above the Xeran capital planet, its sleek hull reflecting the pale light of a distant sun. Captain Maris leaned in her chair, a calm smile on her face, watching the glow of the massive city below. Humans had arrived, here by accident, yet they were now at the heart of the Empire itself. Here we are, Maris said softly. The grand finale, and we didn't even know we were performing it. Lyle scratched his head. Finale? I thought we were just supposed to poke around a few systems and then leave. Amara smiled. By accident, humans have already done more than anyone expected. Now, let's see how the last step unfolds. Their mission, or what Xerans thought of as a mission, was simple. Survey the capital's defenses, report, and follow instructions. But humans had never followed instructions. They improvised, they laughed, and that combination had already caused the Xerans more trouble than a fleet of rebels ever could. Maris stood at the edge of the landing platform, looking down at the enormous energy gates of the capital city. Xeran patrols were everywhere, expecting resistance, fear, or at least compliance. Instead, humans approached with casual confidence, joking about the magnificent alien architecture, and pretending to measure the height of energy towers with their fingers. Watch your step, Amara whispered. The patrols are programmed to detect unusual activity, but unusual is us. Lyle laughed. Then let's be as unusual as possible. The humans wandered through the city, observing its massive energy conduits, flowing traffic of levitating vehicles, and glowing towers. They asked curious questions, joked about minor quirks, and examined control panels that Xerans assumed only their elite engineers could touch. At one point, Lyle accidentally pressed a sequence of buttons on a communications hub. Alarms blared, holographic displays flickered, and patrols rushed toward the source. Maris clapped her hands. Perfect. Chaos is always helpful. Amara tapped her tablet. The sequence. has rerouted internal alerts to multiple sectors. Patrols are moving in confusion, and we are completely undetected. Lyle grinned. I call that accidental genius. The humans continued exploring, their laughter echoing through the city streets. Xiran officers monitored every move, increasingly baffled. Voron's claws tapped nervously on the console. They are uncatchable, and their actions disrupt everything, even our own systems. How can this be? Raxil shook his head. They are humans. They improvise. They do not fear. They enjoy the chaos. That is the danger. Humans, oblivious to the panic they caused, found themselves at a central energy hub. This facility controlled defense drones, power grids, and communication channels for the city. Xirans had expected humans to hesitate, panic, or retreat. Instead, they approached casually, examining the machinery with curiosity. Fascinating, Amara said. So many controls, but rigid. Humans can find workarounds. Lyle leaned over a console. Workarounds, that's our specialty. Let's see what happens if I press this. A series of lights blinked, displays changed, and the patrol drones that had been converging on them were rerouted to other sectors. The humans laughed as they watched the drones move in patterns that made no sense to their operators. Maris clapped, her hands. See? No combat, no aggression, just curiosity, laughter, and improvisation, victory in action. Meanwhile, Xiran officers scrambled to understand the situation. Every system humans touched became unpredictable. Every patrol became misdirected, and every alarm triggered an unintended effect. It was as if the humans were reshaping the city without even trying. Voron growled. We cannot control them. Every attempt to contain them fails. And they laugh while doing it. Raxil's glowing eyes narrowed. It is not strength of arms that threatens us. It is their spirit, their unpredictability, and their morale. The humans, noticing the confusion, but not fully understanding its significance, decided to explore the palace district. They wandered past massive gates, curious about the architecture, joking about the designs of statues, and asking questions about energy flows. Xiran guards watched in awe, unsure whether to arrest, attack, or simply observe. Lyle accidentally triggered an old security protocol while trying to figure out a simple power display. Holographic maps of troop movements flickered, doors opened, and surveillance systems redirected. Humans moved freely, while Xirans rushed to restore control. Amara whispered, They think they are containing us, but we are learning their systems faster than they anticipate. Unintentional advantage. Maris laughed softly. Advantage through curiosity. Humans do it naturally, and we do it with humor, which Xirans cannot comprehend. As they explored further, the humans came across the Emperor's council chamber. By Xiran protocol, entering this area without authorization would be considered an act of rebellion. Humans, unaware of the full consequences, stepped inside cautiously, whispering about meeting the locals. Inside, Xiran leaders were gathered for an emergency session. Voron and Raxil reported every disruption, misstep, and anomaly. The Emperor, a towering figure of authority, glared at the screens. They are unstoppable, Voron said. We cannot predict, contain, or outmaneuver them, and they laugh. The Emperor's voice rumbled. Laughter? In my capital? Raxil's glow dimmed slightly. Yes, Your Majesty. They move freely, disrupt our systems, and inspire morale among the oppressed, without a single weapon fired. Meanwhile, humans were peering at control panels, joking about how complicated everything was. They accidentally rerouted power through secondary channels, temporarily shutting down non-critical systems and causing minor confusion across the palace. Maris shrugged. Oops, did we do that? My bad, but also not bad at all. Lyle grinned. Humans do not plan. Humans improvise. And improvisation works, especially on rigid systems. Amara looked around. We are not acting aggressively, we are learning. Yet every step destabilizes their control. Their rigidity is our advantage. The Xiran Emperor, realizing the scale of the chaos, finally addressed his council. Enough. These humans are not threats by force. They cannot be contained. They cannot be predicted, and they inspire our citizens without intent. What do we do? Voron's claws tapped nervously. Your Majesty, we cannot fight them, and if we attempt to, they will adapt, improvise, and continue. Perhaps negotiation is the only path. The Emperor paused. Xirans had never surrendered. They had never negotiated from a position of weakness. Yet humans had achieved this without a single aggressive act. Their laughter, curiosity, and ingenuity had created a situation no weapon could solve. Maris, unaware of the Emperor's deliberation, approached a final console. She tapped a few keys, jokingly redirected patrols to make the Empire's day more interesting, and watched as the system stabilized in a new, harmless pattern. That's humans, she said to her crew. We find a way, even in impossible situations. And sometimes, winning is just being ourselves. Finally, the Xiran Emperor issued a decree. Humans were granted safe passage, freedom to leave the Empire, and recognition for their unusual achievements. No fight had occurred, no blood had been spilled. Yet humans had accomplished what no one had expected. Victory, simply by being human. Maris smiled at the crew. Well, team, we stumbled into the Empire, laughed, explored, and now somehow won. Not with force, but with spirit. Humans are remarkable that way. Lyle laughed. And apparently unstoppable, too. Amara nodded. It's not about size, strength, or weapons, it's about adaptability, humor, and ingenuity. That is the essence of humanity. The humans boarded the Odyssey once more, leaving the capital behind. As the ship ascended into space, the Xiran patrols watched in awe and disbelief. Humans had achieved victory where armies would have failed, not through combat, but through courage, curiosity, and joy. Maris looked out at the stars. Humans stumble, humans explore, humans laugh, and sometimes, humans win. Always in ways no one expects. Lyle leaned back. And we get to do it all over again in the next sector. Amara smiled. The galaxy has seen the power of humanity, not as conquerors, but as innovators, as creators, and as spirits that cannot be tamed. The Odyssey sailed into the black expanse of space, leaving behind a legacy of laughter, ingenuity, and inspiration. Stories of humans would spread among Xirans and colonized planets alike, not as tales of war, but as stories of cleverness, courage, and joy. And somewhere in the heart of the Empire, Voron and Raxil realized that humans were not just clever or lucky. They were extraordinary in ways no machine, rule, or weapon could ever match. Perhaps, Voron whispered, the universe has underestimated them. Underestimated? Raxil replied, eyes glowing faintly. We did not just underestimate them, we laughed at them, and they won. Maris turned to her crew, a grin spreading across her face. Humans, we came here by accident. We laughed, we explored, and we won. The galaxy is full of surprises, and apparently we are the biggest one of all. The humans laughed together, looking at the stars stretching endlessly before them. They had stumbled into Empire territory, turned every challenge into opportunity, and left with victory, all without violence, all with ingenuity, and all with the unmistakable human spirit. And that,